Okay, and we're live. Good morning, everyone. It's a wonderful Wednesday morning today. Good morning to our Zoom participants and good morning to our FB Live viewers. So, our topic today is leading productively in turbulent times. We have invited an international speaker from Australia, productivity and self leadership guru, and a breakthrough speaker of the year awarded by Professional Speakers of Australia. So later you'll got to meet her. But for the meantime, my name is Irish Malanda. I'm your host, and with me is Mr. Howell Mabalat as my co-host and moderator. Hello, Sir Howell.
Hello, good morning, Miss Irish Malonda Samson. It's always a pleasure to work with you in this quarantine, time of community quarantine.
Yes, indeed, sir. So before we start, let's welcome our participants from overseas. We would like to welcome our participants from Hyderabad, India. Hello also to Bekasi, Indonesia participants, Lalitpur, Nepal, Doha, Qatar, Jeddah, Saudi Arabia, Singapore. Hello there. Thank you for joining us today. From Koror, Palau, Dubai, UAE, Abu Dhabi, UAE, Washington, United States and Houston, United States. Thank you for
Wow.
joining us today. Okay. And in order for us to have a smooth flow of our e-learning session, here are the house rules. For those of you who are first-time viewers of our webinar, type in the chat box now. Please type in hi. So let us see who are the first-time viewers here. Let us know where are you from as well. Hello, Miss Carla, Miss Jennifer. Jennifer, welcome to our e-learning session. Ms. Tala Tugawin from Quezon City, Miss Apple Pascual. Hello po, welcome to our e-learning session. Ms. Aura Lee Molino. Okay. Okay, from May Kawayan, Bulacan, Ms. Rita Suniga. Hello po. Oh, we have someone from Lapu-Lapu City, Cebu, Miss Gay. Okay, hello. Okay, there you go. These are the first timers, and we would like to check and know if you can hear us loud and clear. So please follow the codes below. Type in 111 if you can hear us. 111, loud and clear, and we're audible. Okay. Loud and clear, Ms. Annalisa. Thank you, Ms. Lisa. Christine, loud and clear. Jonathan. Okay. 222 means you can't hear us. 2121 means the sound is breaking and there's a log. And question mark if you don't understand anything. So far, Sir Howell, we're all clear and good. Okay. Moving on, we will be having a 2 to 3 minute break after the presentation of our guest speaker and before we move on to our question and answer portion. Participants' microphones will be temporarily disabled by the administrator during discussion to avoid interruptions. Questions will be entertained after each topic of the session. For questions and clarifications during the provided time after each topic, please click the raise hand button for the administrator to enable a microphone for live questions. Type in your questions at the Q&A box, again at the Q&A box, not at the chat box. One question at a time will be entertained. For comments and feedback, please scan this QR code. This will be directed to our feedback form. Please send us your comments, suggestions, topics to discuss for us to improve our future e-learning sessions. And now, to discuss leading productively in the turbulent times, Mr. Howell Mabala, please introduce our guest speaker.
Thank you, Miss Irish. It is indeed an incredible, we are incredibly honored. We are thankful that our speaker for today said yes to be part of our webinar, the way we give back to the Filipino community, especially the professionals who are in lockdown today. Today's speaker helps managers be productive, profitable, and promotable. Awarded the 2020 Breakthrough Speaker of the Year by Professional Speakers Australia, a 2019 finalist for Australian Learning Professional of the Year, Bronze Stevie International Business Award. She's also the winning champion sole trader in the 2019 Australian Small Business Champion Awards and was named as one of the 25 LinkedIn top voices for Australia for 2018 for her thought leadership. She has authored multiple books. Her book, The Productive Leader, received an endorsement from the renowned global personal development guru, Brian Tracy. So everyone, let's put our hands together for Miss Sally Foley-Lewis. Hello, Ma'am Sally. Hi.
Hi. Thank you so much, Mr. Howell. It's so lovely to be invited into this event and to share some thoughts around how we can lead productively through this crazy world we're in at the moment.
You know what? Here in the Philippines, Ma'am Sally, what you'll teach us will be very beneficial. Because right now, not only is it about COVID-19, it's about a major TV network closing down, and a lot of people are being polarized. People, instead of being productive, are fighting each other. We want to hear from you, Ma'am Sally, today.
My pleasure. I hope that that everyone can take away some tips and some ideas from this presentation today. So I'll just start sharing my screen and we'll get the slides up and we will get going. How about that? Does that suit everyone?
That's great, Ma'am.
Oh,
That's great,
thank
Ma'am
you,
Sally. So from this moment on, we'll give you the limelight, the center stage. So take it away.
Thank you so much.
We'll be very receptive of the thoughts you'd be sharing with us.
Thank you, Mr. Howell, and thank you for that lovely introduction. I appreciate you. Thank you.
I appreciate you more, Ma'am Sally. And by the way, just call me Howell.
Hal, okay, Hal. Thank you so much. Well, everyone, like Hal said, there's some really challenging things happening right now, both locally and globally, and you don't need me to tell you what they are. The only thing I would say is make sure that when you are doing your research about what you can and can't do right now, make sure your source is reliable. I think that's one of the biggest challenges that we are facing right now, is making sure that we have got absolutely the best quality, reliable, trustworthy information in front of us. So that's about all I'm going to say about that specific thing. So let's get into this. And I want you to realize, or I want you to feel safe that I can talk to this topic around being in turbulent times. Now, as Hal said, I've written a few books. I've done a few things in my time. One of those things in my time was I was actually the CEO of a youth program called the Duke of Edinburgh's Award. It's a global program that schools and youth organisations and churches can run inside their organisation. And I was the CEO in my local state in Queensland, Australia. Now, on the Friday, when it was announced that I was being promoted from a senior project officer into the boss's job, I was so happy. I was so excited. There was lots of patting on the back, handshaking when you were allowed to shake hands, and congratulations and all things like that. And I thought, this is awesome. I was one of the youngest CEOs that this program had. And I was, I was getting a little bit puffy in my head. I was getting a little bit egotistical. And then I got through the weekend, and so Monday was the first day as a CEO. And my administration officer came up to me and she said, well, now that you're the CEO, can we fix the database? And I said, sure, because I thought, fix the database? I guess she knows what she's talking about. That's not a really difficult question. And then she unpacked what that really meant. So what had been happening prior to me being the CEO was we were inflating the numbers of people that we called active. So instead of actually having less than 10,000 young people active in the program, our database was saying every young person was active. So we were reporting that we had over 20-something thousand young people in this program as active. And that's just not true. And when you look at that, you think, okay, but it does have an impact on a whole range of elements, including our insurance, our funding, and also the way in which we provide support to all the organisations that deliver the program. And so it was really telling a lot of lies that had big financial impacts. And so the other thing, which I think is so important that I share with you, because this was the bit that really, really stuck with me, included in doing that and included in reporting that we had over 20,000 young people was our communications process. And that meant that we were communicating to almost every young person or their parents. And that unfortunately included sending communication to the parents of children who had passed away. And so there were no real checks, there were no real stoppages, there was no real truth in our database. And so that began an 18-month pulling apart, pulling at this, pulling at that. It was a really, really tough time. It was actually a crisis for our organization. There was a whole lot of uncertainty. There was a whole lot of ambiguity, especially when we had to understand our insurance. And it was emotionally draining for everyone involved. And, when you have to tell the government that this is what has been going on, you run the big risk of losing all your funding as well. And so I was the CEO that took us from being liars, sorry to say, to actually cleaning up the database and being the truth teller that we really should have been. And while at the time I was terribly burnt out, I was upset, it was stressful, it was an awesome lesson in how to get through a crisis. And so I actually look back at that time as being incredibly valuable for being able to be productive during turbulent times. So that's a little bit about me and why I think I've got a little bit of understanding around turbulent times, and I'm passionate about productivity. So we bring those two together and we work our way through our crazy turbulent times together. And so in this session, my objective is that I want you to understand the friction that can happen between productivity and crisis and why. And we'll look at the 4 steps to the new normal, if there is a normal, and 5 constituents that I would love for you to keep in the back of your mind and move through as you are helping yourself and your team and your family to move through these crazy times. And understanding that planning will actually be far better for you and everyone around you than panicking. And being the voice of calm amidst the chaos is so important right now. Leading yourself and others through change, and we'll talk about some strategies that you can do there. And staying positive and the impact that has on productivity. And understanding that action comes before motivation. And we'll look at one really easy implementable action that you can take right now. I love to call it chunking, because I love the word chunking. Take a chunk of work and a chunk of time, and we put them together and we get stuff done. So that's what my plan is for this session with you. If they have any questions, put them in the chat box, and we will have a question session later on as well. So if we're all good with that, I also want to tell you that at the end of this session, I would love for you to have the first chapter of my book, The Productive Leader. I can also give you the white paper. There's a Management Success Skills ebook. Give you access to the weekly flow notes and productivity notes, as well as I've been writing articles, which I'm calling the COVID-19 files. And it's just information and ideas and strategies for you and for leaders to help boost productivity, help self-leadership through these tough times, because if we don't look after ourselves, it's harder to look after others. So I'll show you how you can get all of that at the end of the session. And if that's good with you, can you please type a number 5 in the chat box for me? If you want these goodies, tap number 5, because there's 5 things to give away. Awesome, cool. Yay, here come all the 5s. 5s are alive. I like it. Thank you so much. Okay, good. So there we go. So this is some of the comments that I've been receiving when I've been working with clients and teams over the last, so since March really. And it's, I'm online all day. It's relentless and exhausting. I'm personally busy and I feel like I'm just not connecting with others as I normally would. I don't understand the needs and emotions of my, of my remote team and of my remote staff. How do I communicate effectively now? How do I stay motivated while I'm working from home? And also some of the other ones are, how do I bring people along that shift from being, not just work from home, but also agile and different? How do I make that happen? And how do I trust the work's getting done when I can't see it? That's a big one. And I'm struggling with conflicting priorities and how to manage expectations and multiple requests. And we'll cover that in this session for sure. And how do I keep staff out of fear and in focus? And so some of the information that we'll cover off in this session for you, we're going to go fast and I'm going to give you a lot. So I know that you will have access to the recording. And my recommendation is that you watch this back multiple times. And each time you watch it back, you create one action for yourself, and then you go and implement that, and then watch it back again and another action. There's a lot coming to you right now. Just take it all in, and you get to come back and actually implement an action plan with you. And I'm happy to help later if you need that help as well. So let's get into answering all these current responses and challenges that people are facing. Time magazine calls this the great work from home experiment. Well, I think that's a great line. I think it's also has its challenges as well. And there's a lot of research out there about work from home. A recent one from Buffer said that 90% of people intend to actually stay work from home for the rest of their lives. But out of that, there was a big cohort that said loneliness was going to be the struggle. And there's another piece of research that was done in China, and in there it said that the people increased their productivity by at least 13% when they worked from home. And there was a massive drop, up to 50%. Of employees quitting, so that people stayed longer with their employer. However, in this experiment, it was really quite sanitized, and what I mean by that is it had to be you've got a dedicated office in your home. You are never going to be disrupted by anyone else in your home. So that's not quite how it is right for most of us now. We're home, everyone's home right now. And it's a little bit different to having no disruptions and having your own space. So, however, what that research did show was two key things. And that is, not everyone wants to work from home, but also when we don't have a choice, this COVID had hit us and everyone said, go home, work from home if you can, unless you're an essential worker that has to be in the workplace. And even those arrangements changed as well. There's no choice right now. And that's a really tough thing that we've had to grapple with. And not only do we have to deal with it, but we also have to help the people around us to also get out of our heads and get on with focus and the productivity that we've got to achieve. Now, choice was a big thing. The other thing was, even though people who were in this experiment really enjoyed the work from home element, they also noticed that they wanted to come to work at least one day a week, because being face to face with people boosted their innovation, their creativity, their focus and motivation. So it's almost like we want the best of both worlds, face to face, work from home, be online. And we've got the technology. Once we get rid of COVID, we can do this. And there's a lot of talk in my industry as a professional speaker and a trainer and a workshop deliverer, is that we'll go to a lot of blended opportunities, which I think is great. It means that we can serve more people in more diverse ways, which I think is awesome. There's so much research about work from home, but the key element, I think, for all of us at the moment is that choice. And one size does not fit all. What I like to do and how I like to learn is going to be different for you and the person sitting right next to you, 1.5 meters away from you. We're all different. And I think that's what makes it wonderful. It gives us opportunities. So I've got a question for you. How many times have you moved house? So when I do this exercise, some people say, does that include when I was born and I went from the hospital to my first home? Does it include moving countries? And my answers to that are, you include whatever you want. So I've moved house over 27 times in my life. I know, I don't look that old that I could have possibly moved that many times. But I want you to write in the chat box, type it into the chat box, how many times you've moved house. or home or apartments or countries. So I'll give you a moment to do that. So we've got 2, 1, 2, 2, 8 times. Okay, 8 plus probably. 1, 5, 2, 3. Okay. Never moved. So you're still in the hospital, Lee. 4 times, 10 times, more than 10 times. Yep, 3, 5, 2. So we've got a real mix. That's awesome. 7. I'll keep going. Another 10 seconds. 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. So we've got a real mix of times that we've moved house. So my next question to you is, what did you hate? What did you really not like about moving house? So just type that into the chat box, just 1 or 2 words. The first thing that comes to mind about what you really don't like about moving home. Cleaning up, packing, unpacking, loading and unloading. Oh, yes. Actually, not many people said loading and unloading. That's a good one. Rearranging, packing, disruption of relationships, yes. Adapting to new environment, loading, unloading, sorting, cleaning, unpacking, cleaning up. I don't know about you, but I'm pretty clean in my home. But when you pull the refrigerator away from the wall and you look at the floor and the dead cockroach, that makes no sense to me. I clean my house. So yes. Yeah, great list there. New neighbours, is that a bad thing? Is it? You don't hate the new neighbours, I hope. There's an adjustment, I would say. Yeah. So here's the other thing. What do you love? What do you really look forward to when you move home and you move house? Is it moving from a house into a home? Is it about making the house your home? What is it for you? Comfort, packing, sorting, cleaning, arranging things, adjustment. New beginnings. Yeah, that's a lovely phrase, isn't it? New beginnings. New environment, new life, comfort. Yeah, new experiences. Owning your own home. Oh, congratulations. Yes. New start, right decision. Yes. Yeah. New norms, new normal, new neighbours, new memories. Yeah, new memories. That's a nice one. Yeah, fresh start. That's a good one. New community, new environment. Absolutely. Awesome. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Lots of new in there, which is awesome. So I asked you to do that and think about that, because if you take the whole process of moving house, you already know how to deal with change and something that's turbulent in our life. We all are already able to do that. And we also know that there are some really awkward things that we don't like to do, but we know that there comes a whole lot of new opportunities from the move itself. So it's really important that when you think about how you're stuck maybe in the moment, or how maybe someone that you work with or your family or maybe your team are feeling a bit stuck at the moment, ask them about how many times they've moved house and what that experience was like for them. And remind them that they know actually how to deal with change because they've done it. And we sometimes forget that we actually already have the skills to be able to cope with this. All we need to do is turn the volume up a little bit. And that's what this is about today. Fantastic. Still got more coming in. New meeting relatives of my husband. Okay, everything's new, creating new memories, new environment. Perfect answers. Thank you, everyone. Now, this model here, I think, was just perfect for understanding how our organizations, how our businesses, and how they have responded to this current situation. And so if you have a look from left to right in this model, BAU, it was business as usual. We were just going along our business. We're just doing business. We're getting our work done. Sun is shining. All sorts of things had just normal. Then bang, we get this COVID crisis. And so what then happens is we have all our responses to it. So after the shock, and before we get into an area or a level of acceptance, what happens is we've got a choice of ways of behaving. So if we look at the bottom, we cheat or we hoard. And so as an example of that, here in Australia, and you might have had it in your countries as well, everyone went crazy buying toilet paper. And what they should have been doing was buying petrol, because petrol was cheaper, but toilet paper. And then the other thing around what happened also was the price of hand sanitizer In Australia, it was $5 to start with. Then I saw in one shop, it was 49 Australian dollars. Same size bottles. So there's a little bit of cheating, a little bit of hoarding, and I do get the supply and demand element to this as well. But that's sort of the behaviors that we could possibly fall into from the shock of the crisis. For others, it could be they just cut and go. And so that means they shut up shop, they close their business, and they decide to move and maybe get a different job, maybe just go and just find a different opportunity altogether. Then if we move to the top where we say hide, this is people who they haven't closed their business, but it's like they get under the doona and put Netflix on and just wait for COVID to go away. And so, they don't do anything to change their business. They don't really do anything to promote their business. They're just waiting for the storm to pass. Then we've got others who conform, which means they're following and tracking the advice, they're tracking the rules, they're slowly adjusting to their new normal and as they move towards acceptance. But the ones that get all the way through fast and get the cut through so that they're leading are the ones who innovate. And they're the ones who look at the way they deliver a product or service and look at their market and say, right now, how do we pivot or how do we adjust so that we can deliver this in a different way? So one of the things that's happening in Australia, and I know it's happening in a few other countries as well, and I'll take the fast food, like a pizza shop at the moment. They have changed their liquor licensing so that people can actually get takeaway or delivery pizza and alcohol. Now, there's a health issue about that, and there's different thoughts about that, but that was an example of a pivot from just being a takeaway pizza shop or like maybe a few tables for people to sit and eat and dine in to purely takeaway and adding an extra item to their menu. So that's a pivot, and that was them being innovative. The way in which I do my business, I have been delivering these online webinars and programs for a long time. And so now I've actually just increased the capacity and made them more better studios set up, make sure that my connections are much better. And so I'm innovating inside of what I can already do. And then we move into our acceptance, and then, the inevitable happens and we recover. This too shall pass. We need to remember that. And we will come out the other side with lessons. And if we're smart enough, we'll actually take those lessons and be better in our business for it. So I love this model. I think it's a beautiful way to understand how different organizations move from the shock to the acceptance. And I think it sits on top of this understanding that we are absolutely living in a VUCA world. And so I've seen a variation on this VUCA where there's two V's, so virus and volatile and uncertain, complex and ambiguous. And that's definitely our times at the moment. And this model helps to describe what we might be in at the moment. So complexity, which is our top left. And that's how well do you predict the outcome of whatever your actions might be? And if it's complexity, then we have multiple key decision factors in play. If it's volatility, then it's what's the speed that things are changing? And I think at the moment, if you looked at the way in which some governments have said it's lockdown, then it's closure, and then it's some physical distancing restrictions, and then restrictions are lifted. So if you look at the rate of change, for some people, that's quite volatile. And uncertainty, I think we are definitely in uncertain times. So it's, being unclear about the present. Hi, John, I'll come to your question just as I finish this model. And then there's ambiguity, a lack of clarity about meaning of an event, and making sure that when we're in that situation, we are searching out to make sense of it. And the leaders of today and tomorrow are the leaders who can make sense of what's around them. So, John, I think you had a question. If I can ask the moderator to help you bring that question in, or shall we hold it to the end?
I think for an interrupted presentation, we'll address that later if it's okay with you, Ma'am Sally.
Oh, I'm fine. John, if you're okay, either type your question in the Q&A box and we'll make sure we get to it at the end, okay? I don't want you to not have your question answered. Perfect. Awesome. So this is the model that I use, and I think it's where we move from survive to thrive. And right now we need to be aware that we don't just go survive, thrive. We actually have a process that we do need to move towards. And it takes elements and it takes constituents that we have to focus on so that our productivity can also get back to 100%. And first things always first is you. You are central to how things are going to work for you and around you and with the people that you interact with your customers, with your clients, with your stakeholders. And so as we move from survive to revive, we also have to make sure the space around us is also safe and as healthy and conducive to being productive. And then from revive to drive, we're working with our staff to make sure that they're okay, they're plugged in and connected, and they're able to do the work as best possible given the constraints. And I loved this quote that I heard the other day. We are not doing work from home. We are actually in a crisis, all staying home so that we're safe, trying to do work. And I thought that was a perfect distinction for what we're in at the moment. I thought that was awesome. And then as we move from revive to drive, we're wanting to make sure our strategy is in place. Are we planning or panicking? Have we created purpose for ourselves and others so that we actually have something to focus on and be motivated about? And then from there, we return to whatever our new service is, and we are thriving once again. So hopefully that makes sense for you. And I think it's a nice, simple way to plan your way through turbulent times. And what we'll do is we'll actually start with you. And that's me, and that's my oxygen mask. I do have an oxygen mask. I didn't take it off the plane. Don't panic. There's still all the oxygen masks are still where they should be on a plane. But I have that hanging by my desk to remind me that I need to put my mask on first so that I am okay, and then I can be the best version of me for everyone around me. And I know at times it can feel really challenging that it's being selfish, but it's not. So some of the areas where I think, particularly right now, where it's really quite turbulent, where we can actually really self-care is personal care and well-being. You know, okay, gyms might be closed. So how do you do the workaround? Are you Zooming or Skyping or WhatsApping your gym program? Are you walking? Are you doing steps? Are you creating steps in your apartment? Are you doing more yoga and mindfulness? Do you stay calm and carry on? Staying calm and continue doing something that's productive is really important. If we stop, then we can get overwhelmed. And even to stop and plan is better than just stopping. And that's a distinction between those as well. Reviewing our priorities is really important. It's interesting, and many years ago, I asked my boss when I was young and an employee for a day off. I was waiting for a tradesman to come and fix something at my house, and they gave me a whole day window of when they would arrive. So I said to my boss, could I please work from home because I'm waiting for this tradesman? You would have thought my boss had a heart attack. It was, oh, I don't know if you can work from home. Well, take the mobile phone. Make sure you transfer the landline to your mobile. Put a sign up in the office. If anyone rings, answer the phone in 3 rings. Don't tell anyone. Don't tell anyone you're having a day off. And I thought, wow. Now that was about 20 years ago. You throw a virus in and all of a sudden we're not questioning working from home. We are saying, how do we get home faster? And I'm definitely not saying let's have a virus. But isn't it interesting how we reviewed our priorities pretty quickly when we have to? Plan, but hold it lightly. I love this phrase about holding lightly. Put a plan in place, but know that things can change. Be flexible, yeah? Be able to be that tree that can actually bend in the breeze, but still keep their roots nice and deep in the ground so that they're sturdy as well. And hurry slowly. And what I mean by that is, once you've made a decision, take action. But don't rush the decision making. Don't rush the planning. Be mindful that if you don't do all the planning properly, you'll have to clean up the messes later. So be careful. Make sure you're responding and not reacting. Yeah. And let chaos initiate your innovation. I mean, we all had to move home, or we all had to change the way we worked. My husband's an air traffic controller, and so it's an essential piece of work. And even though there are far less planes in the sky, they still have to provide a service. So the chaos that created in their building, that shifted everything for the way they work, and it just worked. And it was allowed to initiate some innovation. And so they have a teams approach inside their rostering now, which is really quite interesting to watch it all come together. And remember, particularly right now, this is not personal. Very few countries in the world have, are safe right now. There are some probably, but, our economy the world over is suffering. It's not personal. We all have to dig in and just get through this. And remember to communicate, and remember to communicate with precision, and find out what you need to know and share the facts. Ask questions rather than make guesses or speculation, because gossip doesn't help anyone. And please do not inject disinfectant. That's all I'm going to say about that. Okay. Remember to keep on communicating with people. Keep asking questions, checking in with people. Are you okay? Are you okay? Really important. And so the secret to your future success is actually hidden in your daily routines. And so this is a photo from my backyard. I live just out of the city, and we have big mountain views. And one day I just got amazing sunset. But these are my sunset and sunrise and start work rituals. And I actually start with the sunset. So at the end of the day, I just get everything out of my head, drop it all down, and make sure that I don't have to think about anything. I don't have to try and remember anything. This thing up here on my shoulders is not a filing cabinet. It doesn't hold a whole lot, but it creates a lot. My dad would say it doesn't hold much at all, but he's just kidding. So I get it all out of my head and put it down. I also think about what I'm grateful for and what I'm proud of doing or achieving that day, or grateful for whatever's happened that day. And I put my timer on for 2 minutes, and I tidy my work area so that it's an inviting environment to come back to the next day. Now, right now, I'm working with a lot of clients, and what I suggest to them is they actually pack up their workspace and make it their home space if they can, or they just make sure that they are working in one space that is designated for work so that everything else can stay personal or home. Really important to make those distinctions. And then the sunrise ritual is I move, improve, and plan. So I get up and I do some exercise. I'm actually working on a program. I'm hopefully climbing Mount Kilimanjaro next year. And so I'm working on my training for climbing. I do some improvement. So I watch a TED or read some books or listen to a podcast, anything to keep me constantly learning, and plan my day out. And then I go into my office and I prioritize my work. I double check anything that may have come in and have to handle. And then I manage my expectations throughout the day. And that's a way in which I think we can all keep ourselves on track throughout the course of a day. It helps us finish our day, because I'm noticing a lot of people's days are getting longer and longer and longer because they're at home, and we don't know when people switch off, really switch off. So it's a really important thing to make that distinction for yourself. And being able to handle what comes your way is really critical for yourself and for your team. And this is some of the things I think you could be searching out for yourself, as well as encouraging your teams and your colleagues as well. What feedback do they need to have? Are you listening really well? Are you actually paying attention and being present with others? Are you noticing your emotions and noticing the emotions of others and where they're rising and falling? And remembering that when emotions are high, logic is low. And what constant and consistent steps can you make that actually lead to a big transformation? If we just stop, then where are we going to be in 2 to 3 weeks' time, or 2 to 3 months' time? We're not going to be further down the track. We're not going to be advanced as what we'd like to be. So even if we're struggling, little steps every single day, constantly and consistently, will actually lead to really big transformations. So being able to handle what comes your way comes from doing all these things. So that's about yourself. And as we move up the ladder, I want to go through a whole range of different strategies you can do to help blend and make sure that your productivity is increasing. The people you work with are also staying productive, and we're moving through those layers in order to thrive. And so I found these in this work from home, and I thought they were quite funny. Work from home, my wife said, you'll be more productive, she said. No one will interrupt you, she said. And I love this sign on a door from Mum is in a meeting, do not enter. The answer to your question might be here, upstairs, in the wash. I don't know what's for dinner. In your bedroom, no, and piece of fruit. So I think if you're a parent, you resonate with any one of those as some work from home means. So yeah, this is a personal work strategy that I absolutely love, and it's called chunking. I call it chunking. And what it is, it's you doing a chunk of work, and it's one piece of work, one single intention to achieve in a piece of time. So, for example, if I showed you my calendar and my alarms, I have multiple alarms on my phone. I actually do 3 times 33 minutes of email processing per day, and around those, I do 50 minutes of work and then 10 minutes of personal whatever I want, which means in 50 minutes, I might write the next chapter of my book. I might write the first part of a keynote speech. In 50 minutes, I might prepare for a coaching call. And then the 10 minutes afterwards, I get up and I do something different, which actually helps me break my thinking, gives me a rest mentally, and then I can come back and do another 50 minutes of work. Now, these are the days when I'm actually working in my office from home, as opposed to when I used to be out delivering programs. So please, if this works for you, if this sounds like a great idea, try it out. Maybe try it for one day or even just the morning. And if it works, that's great. Let me know how you go. But also, don't keep this a secret. Share it with everyone else. It's absolutely based on the Pomodoro Technique. Definitely, Venus. And that's where I got it from. And I started with the Pomodoro Technique, which was small pockets of time, and the Pomodoro Tomato, which was his kitchen timer that he had in his kitchen. But I've pushed it out to be 50-minute pieces of work because I just trained myself to do that. And I've noticed also that people can concentrate when they need to, and they also want to get into a piece of work and get it really well and solidly done. And 50 seems to be like a really good compromise. But it could be 20-30, it could be 40-20, whatever works for you. But definitely the key to success with this is doing one task only, and all the other distractions have gone away just for that period of time. So yeah, good pickup, Venus. Absolutely the Pomodoro Technique. So how do we lead our people through turbulent times? If you're a working parent who's also had children at home, you'll know that working 9 to 5, like Dolly Parton's movie from a long time ago, is not quite working 9 to 5. It's 9 to 10, then 9:45 to 10, and then in these little pockets here and there, and it can be really frazzling. And that's because we haven't really created a structure and a system for ourselves and for everyone else around us. And so we need to keep it real, number one, but we also need to be able to make sure our staff are in the best place possible to do the work they need to do. So every employee needs trust. So our leadership has to have a clear plan. It needs compassion. So do they feel well and prepared to work? And are our managers being compassionate and checking in on people? They also need to feel stable. So is the manager keeping people informed and up to date? And even when there's no information, is the manager still having a dialogue? And hope. Hope is really important, but it doesn't have to be fake, and it doesn't. And I'm not talking about false hope either. I'm talking about creating hope around we will get through this. I trust that if we work our clear plan, we'll be able to be a much better place in 6 months' time. So that's a hope and aspiration type of statement. And it's based on also when a leader in an organization makes a hopeful statement or an aspirational statement, it shows that the organization cares about the well-being of the person. And so some of the skills that we need to be able to get through this time is, our situational awareness, decision-making, communication skills are really important, teamwork, leadership, managing stress, and coping with fatigue, all critical skills for success. And remembering that when we do communicate, we all do this as humans because we are in we're in the process of making sense, and we're in the process of making information make sense for us, for ourselves. And so we tend to delete, distort, or generalize information. And when we do that, we all do it. We need to be mindful that that happens, because that way it will make sure that the way we communicate is constantly, clearly, completely, and it's also able to be understood. We speak to be understood is really important. And you as a leader, if you're in a leadership role, I think you need to be a broadcaster and a barometer right now. So you need to be the barometer and checking in on people and measuring the weather and the climate of everyone. And that will then inform how you can be a broadcaster and talking about what the organization is doing, talking about what the team can do, helping the team plan and move forward, checking in with individuals and their employment plans and the tasks they've got to do. So it's a good balance there. As a leader, you're being able to be a broadcaster and a barometer. And I think that helps you, give you purpose in your leadership role as well. And now this is a big thing that's coming up for a lot of organizations, a lot of people at the moment, and they are struggling with having to handle multiple requests at once. And so the 5 A's to responding to multiple requests is really helpful. And the first one is to acknowledge and appreciate you've been given a request. It's nothing worse than sending an email off to someone and you don't get a reply or response in a certain amount of time. If it's urgent, it's not an email, it's a phone call. But you need to acknowledge and accept and appreciate the request as soon as you can. And then ascertain the level of importance or urgency. So it might be a conversation that you need to have. Advise that you might need to do some research, or there's some work that you might need to do in order to provide the answer that they want. And then agree the deadline. So you haven't even started the work yet. You're still in a conversation about how important is this, what work might be involved, when do you really need it by, like, what's my deadline for this? And then, of course, you have to do the work. You can't give it to someone else maybe, but it might be that you have to do the work, and then you actually answer the request. And so what you're doing with steps 1 through to 3 is actually having a dialogue that helps to give clarity around the importance or the urgency of the task, the real amount of work that might have to happen. And in that conversation, and you know yourself, when you're talking with someone and you're having these ideas and things become a little bit more clear in that conversation, and it might be that that request shifts a little bit and becomes less urgent, still important. Or it might be that, oh, hang on, we need to do something else first. So that dialogue is absolutely critical for being able to manage multiple requests. So the last little piece I want us to walk through before we go to some questions are the 4 steps that you can use to get through these turbulent times. And first things first is you need to understand and gain an insight of your team. And so if you're working with people or people are reporting to you, we all know that, and we all want, the shortest way from A to B is a straight line. But we live in the real world. It's usually the more interesting way. And I put that there because I want to remind us that our interesting way is also going to be different for everyone. So if you looked at the numbers of people who've moved house and how many times we've all moved house, very different numbers. We've all got different experiences. And so we understand change and turbulence and crisis very differently. And being able to check in and understand that viewpoint from our subordinates is really important. And then that means that sometimes we have some resistance to actual change or dealing with things. And I love this simple model. It's 2 German guys. I cannot ever remember their names. But this model is perfect for being able to understand where people are at, particularly through change and crisis and resistance to it. So if you as a leader have an employee or you have a colleague and you don't understand why they're resistant, is it because they're not knowing, they don't have the information, they're not capable, they don't have the skills, or is it an attitude and they're not willing? And when you can work that out, then you know what to do. So it might be that you need to communicate and educate. It might be some training, some skill building, or it might be having a conversation about their attitude. Fantastic little pyramid, very simple in the way it looks, but it really helps in your leadership. And then sustaining ourselves. So we don't know when this COVID's going to end. We don't actually know when we're going to go back to normal, whatever back to normal might be, and we may never go back to normal. So how do we stay healthy and well through the entire time, particularly when we have a lot of ambiguity? The rules might change a lot as we go. So here are 5 ways we can connect with people through Zoom and phone calls and WhatsApp and everything online. We can give, so it might even be just a cup of tea for someone in our house, give to some fundraising, or give time, or check on a neighbour to see if they need anything. Keeping physically active and your physical well-being. Checking out and observing what's going on around you. What are the noises, the sights, the scenery? What does the street look like at the moment? Paying more attention to the world around you. And how can you learn? How can you continue to learn and develop as you go? And I think one of the things that you can do as a leader is include your team in all of these and ask them what they can do. And there's one really easy way in which you could do this with your team, not for your team. I think leaders and managers, we often think we have to have the answer to everything, and we don't. We just need to ask. And when we ask, we invite and engage the team into the conversation, and their involvement and empowerment and engagement goes up, and they therefore feel as though they're being thought of and cared for, and we all want to be cared for. And so the last piece to this is, when we have to have challenging communication, when people are really stuck, when people need help, then I suggest that we could use SHAPE, S-H-A-P. And so this is a great little analogy to shape the situation as such. So we could talk about the situation, ask the person, tell me what's going on for you. So what's happening inside of you? Yeah. What actions do you think you need to take in order to move forward, to get through this, to help you move it aside? So what's the plan that you can create now? And how can I help you? And how can I support you in doing this? So you have empathy with the person. So SHAPE: situation, happening, action, plan, empathy. So I know I said there was a lot to this, but there you go. Do we have some questions? Can I hand back to Mr. Hal?
Wow, wonderful presentation. Big hand for Ma'am Sally Foley-Lewis. Wonderful. You know what I felt like? Yes, it's short. The time is so short, and yet it felt like we've been attending this workshop for 8 hours. Considering the amount of information you've shared with us so generously. Thank you, Ma'am Sally. Not only you've presented it with clarity, you've presented it with passion as well. And you look good in red.
My favorite color.
And we thank you again. Big hand for Ma'am Sally.
Oh, thank you.
Now,
thank you.
What
thank
we'll
you.
do now, Ma'am Sally, is that we will be pausing for a 2-minute break so that our participants will be given a chance to type in their question at the Q&A box. So everybody, if you have a question, this will be even more engaging. If the first part of this webinar is not only informative and inspiring, the second part will even be more exciting and engaging and encouraging. So with that, again, thank you so much, Ma'am Sally. Don't go away. And to all our participants here in via Zoom, the Zoom room and FB Live, type in your questions now. We'll be right back in 2 minutes. We promise. Don't you go away.